around the £50 mark. My world champion, not pound for pound, but around the £50. We're talking the lightweight championship of the world. The Tribit Maxsound Plus. Very neutral sound, very audiophile-like in its neutrality and its balance across the frequency range until you get to the maximum volumes where, of course, all these speakers start to roll off. So, a speaker I like very much, not a new kid on the block, came out in 2017. The Soundcore Boost, but this is the upgraded version. Why is it upgraded? Well, they've thrown away, by the way, that's the wrong way round. It's very similar. You've got to look for the Anker name. They are very similar either way round. Now, why is it upgraded? Why did they not say Soundcore Boost 2? I've got no idea. Anker, Soundcore, whoever you want to say the branding is. It's becoming very confusing. They'll bring out a speaker, they'll change the name of that speaker, then they'll sell them in different places, different names. And almost all of them come in black. I know the Motion Plus you can get red and blue, but black, any colour you want, as long as it's black. Now, the point is, the Soundcore Boost upgraded. What's different? It's very, very modern, and you know what that means? You won't get an auxiliary input, but what you will get is a little flap, which handily has an extra bit of a flap. It does make it easier to open. You get USB-C charging. So that's very handy, although it's not very new now. I'm still kind of pointing out, oh, it's great, USB-C. It's kind of almost getting old hat now. We're almost waiting for something new. The other thing you get, bear in mind, this is check this morning, £43 speaker. You can use it as a power bank. That's unusual at this price level. So you can use it as a power bank, but you don't get your auxiliary input. It's very, very modern. That means no auxiliary input. I mean, a lot of people will only buy a speaker still if it has an auxiliary input. And I keep saying upgraded because it now has titanium drivers. Yes, the marketing buzzword for Tribit, not for Tribit at all, for Anker Soundcore is titanium drivers. All their speakers seem to be coming out now with titanium drivers. Of course, there are all sorts of materials you can use for making a speaker. Drivers, they all have their pluses and minuses. So it's not like, right, we've got a metal driver. That means I'm going to go out and buy it. At the end of the day, what does it sound like? Now, I'm going to show you the frequency response in its default mode. And of course, being Soundcore, you do get a very usable EQ within their app. And I'm going to show you my early days EQ settings for this speaker. So my custom EQ, just pushing 80 Hz slider +6, and then pushing the highs to increase some of the clarity. We do get a big boost in the bass before, after. It holds on to more 80%. However, when you use custom EQ, we can see it's limiting there 80%. There's nothing to be gained after 80%. And actually it looks like it goes louder with a bit more bass in default mode. So custom against the Maxsound Plus looks like it could be quite close. And at lower volumes, you can see my custom EQ is leaving it pretty bass heavy. I should point out, I'm setting an EQ that you can set and leave. That's the way I do it. 40, 60% aren't really volumes in the real world. I'm listening to as much as 70, 80, 90%. Therefore, that's where the EQ, for me, is at its sweet spot. So, kind of promising on paper. Could it possibly be a new £50 lightweight champion? Could we dethrone the Tribit Maxsound Plus? Well, before we get onto that, I'm going to tell you how the specs, compare. Did say we've got a £43 speaker, we've got a £45 speaker. We already know that's blinking good value. In terms of battery, we've actually got a bigger battery in the Soundcore Boost. I'm going to call it the version 2. 19 watt hours versus 16 watt hours. Of course, SBC codec for both of them. 4.2 Bluetooth for Maxsound Plus. It's weird to me that this hasn't been updated since it came out. Absolute classic on their hands. They did not go all in and make it even better. Because no stereo pairing, which I was going to get onto. No stereo pairing with the Maxsound Plus. Stereo pairing, not party-proof speaker, not party cast, which for me are very annoying when you can't actually pair them in stereo. You can do 100, but you can't do 2 in stereo. How does that make sense? We've got true wireless stereo pairing with the Soundcore Boost. And we've also got Bluetooth 5. They've upgraded it. Bluetooth 5. You can use both of them as a speakerphone, and you probably want to know, because a lot of people like to look at the specs before you buy a speaker, and you like to see mega numbers and then a W. We want to see big watts. Doesn't really mean much in the real world. There's many ways you can spend your amplifier watts, and it doesn't necessarily go louder, because if you want more bass, of course, it's going to take more watts from that amplifier. But however, 24 watts, the Tribit Maxsound Plus, 20 watts, the Soundcore Boost. In terms of weight, very similar, basically 600 grams, or if you really want to split hairs, 595 grams, and Soundcore 624 grams. You can drop them both in water, up to a metre of water for 30 minutes. But the Maxsound Plus is going to drop to the bottom of the ocean or wherever you've dropped it, whereas the Anker Soundcore will float, but it won't float with the drivers up. But it will float, you won't actually lose it. They are claiming 60 hertz, which sounds very reasonable, to 40 kilohertz, which is an absolute joke, of course. In terms of driver, both have 2 woofers, both have 2 passive radiators, and in terms of Bluetooth latency, both very poor, both basically around 150, 160 milliseconds on YouTube, and about the same playing local files. So in other words, not great for Bluetooth latency if you're watching videos. If you're listening to music, it doesn't make any difference at all. But when it comes to videos, the lips are going to move, or you're going to hear the sound before the lips move. I can't remember which way around it is. All I know is the sound and the lips don't move together. You want to know, come on now. As usual, you talk. What do they sound like? About 50% volume. I'm going to do, don't turn off as soon as you hear it. I'm going to do both custom and default modes as a comparison.
It's hard to believe you'll feel better, baby. There's no need for a fight. Just repeat after me when I tell you goodbye. Give it 3 weeks, you'll feel better without me. Better without me. Don't need a doctor just 'cause you lost me. Don't need to open the wine. No medication, antidepressants. All you need is time. No communication, ringing me on FaceTime. Baby, I ain't picking up. And next time you see me, you'll be completely glad that we broke up. Take it from me, you'll feel better, It's hard to believe you'll feel better, baby. There's no need for a fight, just repeat after me when I tell you goodbye. Give it 3 weeks, you'll feel better without me.
I will say, before we get into the nitty-gritty, in my extended listening so far, which hasn't been huge because I've not long had the speaker, but version 1 I never had version 1, was said to have excessive passive radiator extension, throw, whatever you want to call it, was hitting the grill, and that was a problem. Now, I've not noticed that. What I have noticed is, yes, it's quite a veiled sound, but there's a very gritty sound, and it verging on distortion. I can't make up my mind if it's actually distorting, because sometimes taking bass up off can kind of help. It just seems the nature of the drivers. Or it could be, and this is my theory, digital signal processing artifacts. It sounds kind of a dirty sound, like it's not quite, at the end of the day, it's upgraded, but it's still an old speaker. Sounds like they've not quite upgraded the processing and something going on. However, it has a tendency to sound quite gritty, almost bubbly like, and almost distortion, but I couldn't actually say that's distortion because we're not talking on the bass heavy parts or at maximum volume, talking even with the vocals. So not quite right. However, there's your 50% comparison. For my money, I really, really like this speaker. It has a lovely, warm, surprisingly deep, warm bass. I do like a warm bass. I really like the neutral clinical sound, if you like, of the Tribit Maxsound Plus. Does have a reasonable bass, but it's sounding a little brittle and a little thin against the Anker. However, one thing that comes shining through is how veiled, muddied, if you like, this speaker sounds. Surprisingly so. Now, all accounts say, take the grills off, it's going to sound a lot more open. So, it does seem to be a problem with the grill. I haven't bothered doing that because it seems you've got the bottom and the top come off, and then it involves breaking the airtight seal and then having to reseal it. At this point, I'm not risking that. Just to point out, my custom settings, I don't really listen around 50%. A lot of you do listen at low volumes. For me, real world volumes are around 70 to 80%. That's where I tend to be. And that's where I EQ it. So my EQ settings do sound muddied at 50% because it's already a muddied speaker. And I can make a separate EQ for the custom for 50%, and it will help with that muddiness. However, for me, I can't EQ the hell out of every speaker at every volume step. I'm only EQing when it can be embedded into the speaker and where it makes a significant difference. And I'm only doing it once, so it's a set and forget EQ setting. So that's where I am with the EQ settings. Does it sound muddied against the Tribit? The very clear, very detailed Tribit Maxsound Plus? Absolutely. But it still has a very lovely warm bass. And if you're not if you're not aware of how clear another speaker would sound, that to me still sounds fine. Not in default mode, but a little bit of help at the high end still sounds nice. And I still like that really lovely warm bass. I have talked quite a bit, haven't I? 80% comparison.
If you wanna dance, I can tell you about this place I know, somewhere hidden in the stars. Oh, don't waste your energy, even though at 23 you gotta give your all tonight. Yeah, I can feel it in my bones, I don't wanna stop. You've got the recipe, I know it's gonna take us higher. Loosen up, celebrate. Get up, stand up on your feet. Let's get big. Until I forget my name, let's get big. Jump right, slide to the left, let's get big. Live it up while you can, and let's do it again. Let's get big. If you wanna dance, I can tell you about this place I know, somewhere hidden in the stars. No, don't waste your energy, even though we're 23, gotta give you all tonight. Let's get big. Let's get big. Let's get big. Let's get big. Until I forget my name, let's get big. Let's get big. Let's get big. Let's get big. I got
them saying that they think I need therapy, when really I just need a bad bitch to come and cherish me. Take a peek inside my life and I'ma give you clarity, like the diamonds on the ring when I say marry me. And that's directed towards the love of my life, which hopefully I don't meet at some club some night, where every single guy just seems to be her type. I'm way too smart to know this ain't right. Fairy tales going off in my head at night. Very well that I know that this ain't life. A man can dream as long as he can fight, if you put in the work to reach new heights. I'm here to tell you that you gotta stay positive, instead of thinking when you on the stage that you bombing it. Once you do that, then it shows you confident. In my own lane, I've forever been dominant. My mental health really on the decline. I've been sitting here daily just losing my mind. Toss and turn in my bed until the sun comes shine. Will I ever really learn what it takes to be fine? I ask myself, will I learn from mistakes that I made in the past if I wanna be great? But most times I come to find that my findings are fake. My reality distorted from the drugs that I take. But wait, I ain't do that much, but the Molly and the liquor and the weed and the Dutch. I'm cruising in my head and I'm clenching the clutch, as I'm yelling at my demons and I'm telling them shush, shush. I don't even need to say what that mean though. Celebrate my pain by a bottle of Clico. This for my amiga, shake that ass as the beat go. A little bit of weed plus my music a cheat code. My mental health really on the decline. I've been sitting here daily just losing my mind. Toss and turn in my bed until the sun comes shine.
So custom mode Soundcore Boost, Maxsound Plus. As you can see, as you can hear, custom mode, far more bass heavy. Custom EQ at the high end, even though it's pushed quite a bit in the equalizer. It's not overblown. There's a bit of a peak there, 9 kilohertz, but quite linear really. Maxsound Plus, far heavier, mids and highs. But the highs are a bit overdone now. That's pretty flat and we'd like to see a slope, 2 kilohertz and down. But what you can really see is a stark difference between bass heavy custom mode Boost, mids highs heavy, Maxsound Plus. So custom mode Soundcore Boost, Maxsound Plus. As you can see, as you can hear, custom mode, far more bass heavy. Custom EQ at the high end, even though it's pushed quite a bit in the equalizer. It's not overblown. There's a bit of a peak there, 9 kilohertz, but quite linear really. Maxsound Plus, far heavier, mids and highs. But the highs are a bit overdone now. That's pretty flat and we'd like to see a slope, 2 kilohertz and down. But what you can really see is a stark difference between bass heavy custom mode Boost, mids highs heavy, Maxsound Plus. I do want to point out I haven't shown you the frequency response or any tests with the bass up button, and it says up, off, and it does say bass up below it, but you'd have to be there with a magnifying glass to really see it because it's in black as well. Because even on this speaker, it's a bass cut. If you want to cut the bass, if you don't want it so bass heavy, by all means turn bass up, off. I haven't done that because I don't want to cut the bass. It's not like you're getting extra bass with bass up on. To me, that's a balanced bass. All right, it's a bit bass heavy. All right, fair enough. It is bass heavy at low volumes. But even then, if you turn off bass up, if you turn bass up off, it's a bass cut. So again, I'm not going through all the different ways you could use this speaker. Bear in mind, if that bass is too much for you, and you actually don't want any bass at all, turn bass up off. However, when you're in custom EQ, bass up isn't active anyway. 80% volume, that's the sweet spot for this speaker. Any more than that, the bass is going to limit anyway, but it's nice and balanced in custom EQ mode. To me, it's now sounding clear. There ain't that much in it between the two of them, but what there is in it for the Soundcore Boost is lovely, warm, deep bass. Surprisingly deep for a speaker that size and that price, £43. We're talking £50, sub £50 speakers. Both of them punch well above their weight. Very different sound signatures. It's almost like the when I did my Bose Micro versus the Tribit Micro. Clean, lean sound versus warm, rounded sound. And you get the two camps. And, well, that's terrible, and that's terrible. It's taste. They are both good speakers. You can enjoy both of these speakers. Depends on your taste, doesn't it? Except the difference was with those two speakers, £100 versus like 40 quid. And there is the difference. But 45-ish, they are about the same price. And that's at the sweet spot. It's not really that veiled. When you've pushed the high end, it's going to be about your taste. For my money, for the first time in this century, well, since I had the Tribit Maxsound Plus, I am preferring it another speaker in this size and at this price. And it is the Anker Soundcore Boost. What happens when you go to maximum volume?
Like the girls with their nails done now. Girls with their nails done. Like the girls with their nails done. I think the girls with their nails done now. Girls with their nails done. I think the girls with their nails done. Girls with their girls with their nails done now. Girls with their nails done now.
So default mode, Soundcore Boost, is the loudest. In terms of peak, almost nothing in it between custom mode and default mode. Far more upper bass heavy in default mode, but deep bass heavy, well, I say heavy, but deep bass, a decibel advantage to custom mode at maximum volume. And just behind in terms of loudness, but a long way behind in terms of peaks. 3 decibels down in terms of peaks, the Maxsound Plus, couple decibels down in terms of deep bass, and no longer can even hold its own in terms of upper bass. But again, you're going to get some clarity, but it's going to sound a bit thin because look how flat, even from 200 hertz upwards it is. We like to see a linear slope. You've got a bit of a slope there in custom mode, and you've got a more pronounced slope in default mode. That's normally a sign of balance. When you go to maximum volume, you are losing that lovely flat neutral sound because a lot of roll-off. These are maximum volumes. You're probably not going to push your speaker that far, are you? Oh, I don't know. Maybe you will. For me, I'm normally around 8%, where it's still got something of a sweet spot. However, once you go to maximum volume, that is now, for my money, too brittle and too thin sounding, especially against what still has a lovely, warm, extended, deep bass. So for my money, maximum volume, this is the clear winner. Around 70-80% volume, it's neck and neck. It's a matter of taste. 50% probably would say the Tribit. On my settings, the Tribit Maxsound Plus. But I have to tell you, although I didn't do it, as I said, I explained why I haven't done a different setting for every volume step. You can have a clear sounding EQ setting for 50%, or just drop that +6. I've gone at 80 hertz, drop it down to 0. Lower volumes, it's already going to sound less muddy. So there you have it. Certainly got a contender. For my money at this point, no, I think it's a 50-50. I'm almost saying it's a split decision and therefore it holds on to its championship. That's what happens. You've got to beat the world champion to become world champion. Split decision or draw. Yeah, draw. A draw would still mean it retains its throne. What am I going to listen to tomorrow, when I have to pick up a speaker this size at this price? I'm going to pick up the Soundcore Boost. That's me. That's me personally. You may hate my taste and you'll pick up the Maxsound Plus. I'm not saying, again, this is a better speaker than the Tribit. They are both good speakers, but they have a different sound signature. For my money, if you like a warm sound and you're prepared to spend a little time with the EQ, that's your winner. It's an old speaker. I mean, another speaker that I've been aware of, never really got around to listening to. Now I've listened to it, really like it. I've liked it so much, I'm buying a second one to play them in stereo and see how that gets on. This has been my Anker Soundcore Boost, upgraded. It's got titanium drivers versus the Maxsound Plus for who is £50 world champion. For my money, that's definitely the winner. I've got something out of my review, and a thank you for watching.